Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. First off, I just want to apologize. I have Draven in the room with me. He's a little sick because his canines are coming in. He has his teeth. Come here. Can we show the audience? No? Okay. He literally has gotten into the habit of saying yes and no. So every time I ask him anything now, it's always a no. Okay. All right. And now he's just wreaking havoc in my room as I'm trying to record this video. Very excited to be here. Whoop, one sec. Alright, sorry about that. Draven was getting a little fussy, so I gave him a little snacky snack. Sorry, I'm in dad mode right now, so I've been talking like a baby. It's not good, it's annoying. It's annoying me, but he got me out of my chair and I got to go heat up my coffee, so we'll at least have that. That's very exciting. But not as exciting as today's video. We are going to be talking about All Hallows Eve, and this is going to be a full movie review, not just a trailer review, I promise you. So with the news of Terrifier 3 wrapping up with their filming, I thought it'd be a good idea to take a look back at where the Terrifier franchise all started and where Art the Clown first made his appearance, and I just think that would be pretty cool, only because I really fell in love with Art when it came to Terrifier, the original film, not the short film. And that was one of the movies my wife and I first watched as a couple. But for those of you who don't know anything about Art or anything about this franchise, I would highly suggest watching another clown movie if you're wanting to watch a clown horror movie, or there's a lot of other clown movies out there that aren't as gory. And I say that because this franchise is not for the weak. If you're squeamish to blood, you're gonna have a terrible time. So yeah, just forewarning there. This movie can get crazy, and it's gonna get crazy. So yes, if you're squeamish, I would highly suggest turning off this video because we are gonna get into some gory pieces of this film that do happen. If you wanna stick around, thank you, I appreciate that, and let's continue with the rest of this video. Getting back to Art and where he came from, he made his first debut in 2008 in The Ninth Circle, a short film written and directed by Damien Leone, the director of all of the Terrifier franchises. I think he's doing a really good job. Like, he's the only one that I think, and you know, I may just be a Damien Leone fanboy just because, you know, we share the same name first off. He grew up with horror from his dad, and that's how I grew up knowing about horror, and first watching horror movies was with my dad. He named me after The Omen. I mean, obviously, for anybody who's into horror movies knows where my name comes from. So yes, all through my life, all through high school, all through school, it was always, are you evil because your name is Damien? No, bitch. But I do think that that's funny that everybody would make that comparison, and you know, that's why I am the way I am, and also my father is Satan. So getting back to The Ninth Circle, this was a short. Like I said, this movie came out in 2008, and after that, in 2013, I believe, when All Hallows Eve came out, that they added it to the first segment of the VHS tape that little Timmy finds in his candy bag, and that's what we are going to get into here in a bit. The Ninth Circle, you can still watch that short if you just solely want to watch the short. It is available on YouTube, and I will have that link down below if you want to go check it out and you don't want to watch the entirety of this movie, All Hallows Eve. But like I said, it is featured in this movie, so you're getting that plus some. And All Hallows Eve is available on Tubi for free, so if you want to go watch this movie after the review, you can go download Tubi. It's a good time. I actually really enjoy this movie. This film is an anthology. The Ninth Circle, which is the first segment that on this VHS tape, and then you have the second one, which that one's about an alien. That one's actually kind of funny, and I can't wait to talk about that one because that one's just very it's very goofy to me. And then you also have Terrifier the short, which is the very last segment on this VHS tape. And what I really like about this film is that this is Damien Leone's feature film directorial debut, and I think he did a really great job. But getting into the synopsis of this movie, after a night of trick-or-treating on Halloween, babysitter Sarah is surprised to see that the children Tia and Timmy have received an unmarked VHS tape in one of their bags. The children convince Sarah to allow them to watch the tape, which contains 3 stories, each of which feature a homicidal clown named Art. Sarah, real quick, who is played by Katie McGuire, she is also the one who plays Monica Brown, the interviewer in the very first Terrifier film, which I thought was pretty cool. So the movie starts with Tina, Sarah, and Timmy all in the living room after coming back from trick-or-treating. Timmy is counting his candy, and as he's pouring out his candy bag, a black unmarked tape falls out of it, which he is very excited about, that he really wants to watch it. And Sarah is telling him no, because there could be like some weird shit on it. You know what I mean? You don't know if a pervert has put something on it and is, you know, sending that shit out to kids. You know, food for thought. Don't let your kids watch any unmarked devices. devices. Tina and Timmy both convince Sarah to watch it, but not before she wants to watch it herself, just to make sure there's nothing weird on it. But I thought this was funny because they just go off to the side and they could obviously still see the TV. So they're essentially still watching it. Nothing really is happening on it. It's all static at first, but then it comes on. And then, like I said, Tina and Timmy are just off to the side watching it. So they're seeing everything that's on this tape anyway. And they see that it's nothing really crazy. And they're just like, oh, look, I told you it was just a horror movie. So they sit down and they're all watching it. And this is when we get into the ninth circle. I just want to say real quick, Mike Gianelli, who does play Art in this one, I think he did a really good job when it came to playing Art. I really wish that I had seen this movie, or all these little shorts in this movie before I saw Terrifier, because in Terrifier, David Howard Thornton is the one who does play Art in those, and I think he did an immaculate job the way he just portrayed Art, like the sadistic nature to Art, the crazy psychotic ways is beyond perfect. Again, I'm not saying that Mike Gianelli's portrayal of Art was bad in any way. I really do enjoy it. It was a good short for what it was, but I did think it was funny because it's essentially just him with his face painted. There wasn't really any defining features to his face like Art the Clown does have. But for this short, he just looks like a regular guy in a clown costume, you know what I'm saying? It kind of takes you out if you already know who Art is. But if this is your first time, it may not take you out. I don't know. I think that's just me. But again, this is Art's first debut. So, I mean, we could look past all of that. We could just take it for what it is, which is the beginning of Art the Clown and slowly getting into who he is as a villain. So getting back to the short, we see Art the Clown sitting across from a lady at the train station. He's just sitting there smiling at her and she's feeling a little uncomfortable. And then out of nowhere, he starts honking a horn at her. He's freaking her out, really just trying to like get under her skin, it seems like. And she's just telling him to stop. So what does he do next is, of course, he has to get up and go sit right next to her to show that he is sorry. He does hand her a flower, which is really nice. But until he starts laughing at her and pointing at her, she looks back at the flower and there's a hissing cockroach inside of that. She throws it on the floor, gets super weirded out, so then she's trying to leave. But not before he grabs her by the arm and then grabs the syringe and then stabs her right in the vein, sedating her and then later kidnapping her, then chaining her up down underneath the train station. So as we're watching this movie, we are cutting back and forth between Sarah, Timmy, and Tina all watching this movie, and they're covering their eyes. And well, Sarah and Tina are covering their eyes because they're so freaked out by this movie, even though nothing crazy has happened yet. But then we see Timmy sitting down right in front of the TV, looking at it, smirking, smiling like he's enjoying this shit. Don't do that. Stop making this face. But then we cut back to the shore and we wake up with Casey, which, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. Her name is Casey. So she wakes up underneath this train station and she was brought down below, chained up with two other girls. Here we meet Kristen and Sarah, another Sarah, different Sarah. The Sarah in this short, not the Sarah that's watching this movie, which is kind of confusing. Their names don't really matter because, spoiler alert, they don't last long. But they are telling Casey that there is no way out, that there is nowhere they can run, and they've tried everything except for the one thing Casey suggests, which is walking down the way, following their chains. That's one thing they didn't try. You obviously did not try everything. You fucking liar. So anyway, Casey is just telling them that she doesn't want to die down there. And then Kristen over here just starts yelling at her to shut up, just shut the even though all she said was, I don't want to die down here. Kristen, take a chill pill, relax. I get it. It's a stressful situation, but you don't got to get all crazy, all right? One of us is gonna die. There's a 1 in 3 chance it's gonna be you, so just chill. And then Sarah over here, the calm-minded person, is telling them that they do have to try something, so they are gonna be doing Casey's idea, and she's telling them about how they have to try and do this before something happens, but she is rudely interrupted as her chain is getting yanked, and she is now the person getting dragged down the tunnel. So then Casey and Kristen both are walking quietly, hand in hand, as slowly and silently as possible, down the tunnelway. They end up reaching the end of where their chains are linked up. Casey finds a rock on the floor and she's frantically just trying to beat the chains and the lock, and to no avail. And out of nowhere, this big gross looking motherfucker comes up behind Kristen and attacks her, and he has a hatchet, so he's hacking away at her body. So then Casey is just like beating the shit out of the chains, and then this big dude tries to hack away at her but misses the first time, and then she ends up on the floor, and then he goes for another final swing. He ends up breaking her chain and she ends up running down the other tunnel where she meets up with this homeless looking guy, which we'll get to in a second. I just want to mention that this dude looks disgusting. You know who he reminds me of? Have y'all ever seen Spaceballs? He reminds me of Pizza the Hut. Like that gross, like greasy, melty. He's drooling and everything as she's running away for some reason. Everything about this guy's features is reminding me of Pizza the Hut. When I first saw Pizza the Hut and I couldn't eat pizza for like a week. It was very nasty. Kudos to you, Damien Leone, for creating this creature, and I very much enjoyed it. Anyway, getting back to this homeless guy, she's frantically telling him that she needs help. Help, somebody's fucking after me, some kind of creature. To where he's just like looking down at her like, huh, a creature, huh? They both look into their basket, or into the basket that he's pushing. She sees a severed hand, which is still like twitching a little bit. What the fuck is this video turning into, man? Goddamn. Hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully y'all are enjoying this. So then she looks back at him like, what the? And then his face all of a sudden has turned into a skull-looking creature or something like that. And so Casey is now blacked out, kidnapped all over again. And this time she wakes up restrained yet again. This time she is on a table. And as she's looking around, all you see is these goblins, witches, ghouls, and demons everywhere. Which all of them look like they could be from Halloween Town. And I'm not taking a jab here. I'm just making a statement and pointing out the obvious that they don't look as creepy when the masks look like this, especially this demon. I think he's the devil, actually, or something like that. And the only reason I say that it's not as intimidating or as creepy or whatever, because he does take his shirt off towards the end of this little bit. His body is straight up a human body, but his face is the only thing that's demonic about him. So again, it threw me out a little bit because it doesn't match, right? The body doesn't match the head. Ugh. It was just very off-putting to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But anyway, getting back before that part. Casey, like I said, is restrained on top of a table, but there is also another lady hung up by her arms. Turns out to be a pregnant lady, which this one little goblin-looking thing comes up to gash her stomach open, which is like the first gore we get in this movie. Sorry, I don't mean to keep picking apart this movie like as if I'm just bashing on it. I'm just pointing out what I saw and what I think about it, and I think it looks funny. Because as this creature is ripping open this woman's stomach, they pull out the baby. Well, first off, they put a cup on the floor, right? Like a little goblet. But anyway, she pulls out this baby, which, by the way, I just want to mention that this creature who does do the gashing kind of has the same face Art did when Casey was in the middle of passing out and looking back at Art after he had just sedated her. I just thought that they look similar. So yeah, they're practically cousins. I'm just kidding. I don't know if they're related or anything, but I just found the similarities in their face. So the baby comes out, the blood's spilling everywhere, the lady dies, which I think if you are dead or if you do die, your head will fall, right? I mean, that only makes sense. She's like chained up like this. But she's chained up like so, right? And she dies kind of like this, where her head's just like chilling on her arm. And I don't know, I feel like if I died, my head would kind of just, just... I mean, you wouldn't sleep, so you wouldn't be snoring, but, silence. So then this goblet gets full. Demon creature takes it to Satan, or whatever. He kind of drinks it like this, if I could imitate that real quick for you. He does this little thing where he licks, and he's like... and then... or whatever. He doesn't make the slurping noises. I added that. I don't know why that's funny to me, that he's licking his lips like that. I get it. You're drinking blood, all right? That's sadistic enough. But do you really have to be a full-on pervert? Which I guess yes, because shortly after this, like I said, this is when we get into him taking off his clothing, or I guess his demons taking off his clothing for him. His body just doesn't match his face. So it just threw me out of the whole thing. So then right before this demonic, half human, half demon creature, our words, Casey, Sarah the babysitter, decides to shut it off. So then shortly after this, the kids of course get mad, but then Sarah ends up telling them to go to bed because it's getting really late. So then they spend the next 15 minutes trying to get the kids to sleep. But then a little later on, Tina goes into Timmy's room because she is just so freaked out about the clown that was in this movie, which... And all of that just happened on that VHS tape. You're telling me you got freaked out over the clown, but not the half demon, half human, not the giant pizza looking guy, not the other Halloween Town creatures, but the fucking clown, dude? People who don't like clowns weird me out. All right. So it was the clown that did it for her, the clown that she didn't like. So they end up in the same bed together, and Sarah decides to turn the movie back on because she's watching her movie, and it's just eating at her brain that she is just so curious that she really wants, I guess, see what's on the rest of the film. In the second segment, we're following a woman by the name of Caroline. She had just moved into a brand new house in the forest. Her and her artistic husband. He's a painter. And she's on the phone. She's talking to one of her friends or whatever, which doesn't really matter. And as she's unpacking all of her belongings, out of nowhere, she sees this very bright light that is coming out of the sky and crashes, in her words, 100 feet from the house. Exactly 100 feet. No more, no less. And with this light falling down from the sky, all electronics has stopped working. And so there's no light, there's no anything. So she goes and gets this flashlight. She's looking around the house. She's trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, right? And she kind of pans up with the light. She sees that it's an alien creature. This alien is kind of just sitting there. So she starts freaking out because this alien has now come to kidnap her, I guess, or something. Or abducting her, I guess, which would make more sense. It doesn't really make sense in this short as to why the alien's there, but the alien is there. Why do aliens need a reason to abduct anybody or anything, right? They just want to know what Earth is all about. So what's stealing one person? What's stealing one cow? Just let the alien do his business and leave. That's it. You should have just given yourself up, Caroline. And I just really want to talk about this alien real quick because what planet is this alien from where he has to walk like this? Like, this is how aliens walk on this planet, I guess, right? So this is him as he's walking around trying to search for Caroline because they're playing now an epic game of hide and seek, but you don't win $10,000 in this one. All you win is a probe in your butt. Was it 10,000 or was it $1 million? I think it was $1 million. I feel like I want to pick apart this one because this one's funny. I really enjoy it. It's really cool. So as this alien is running after Caroline, she decides to find a hiding spot, and this alien can't find her for some reason. So the alien decides to start playing the most obnoxious sound you've ever heard from his little like communicator box that he has attached to his chest.
And when I lay me down to sleep, it's not your body next to me. This lonely room feels so empty, just me and my regrets.
And like I mentioned earlier, all electronics and everything electrical stopped working as soon as the alien stepped foot in this house. So then Caroline finally finds a good hiding spot in Harry's room. This alien is going around the house looking for her, and then he stumbles upon the box that she was unpacking at the beginning of this thing. I don't know if this alien is like half cat, but he starts going into this box like head first and everything. And I wouldn't have been surprised if he just sat in the box at the end of it. But he's going into this box, looking at everything, taking things out, and just acting like a cat. So this guy swims on air and he gets into boxes like cats do. So I don't know what's up with this alien. I don't know where this alien is from, but I just think he's funny. I don't think he means any harm because he hasn't done anything crazy yet. But like I previously mentioned, all electronics started fucking up. But then in this one instance, her phone starts ringing, gives up her hiding spot. So now the alien has located her, which is funny because the way he runs too is just goofy. And I don't know. I'm honestly, I was really having a good time with this one. And then he's dragging her out of this room. At the beginning of this, I didn't mention it, but there is a painting that her husband painted that she is just super freaked out about. She's telling her friend. I asked him why he painted it, but he didn't give me a solid straight answer. He just said, I don't remember painting it. Kind of like he just blacked out or was possessed as he was painting it. She ended up throwing this sheet over it because she just couldn't stand the sight of it because it was just this really creepy face or whatever. Getting back to the alien, he's dragging her out of there. They're in the same room as the painting, and as he's grabbing her, she reaches up for the sheet, pulls it down, and it reveals Art's face. And it's literally the cover to this movie, and that was the face that she couldn't stand. So then Sarah just decides to shut it off because it kind of lingers on the face for a little minute, and that was the end of that. So yeah. Alright, so then Sarah thinks that she sees the kids running up the stairs, so she goes up to check on them, telling them that, hey, they should be in bed. And they both are in bed, and they said that they would have been asleep already if she wasn't checking in on them every 5 minutes or whatever. But she's taken aback because she has been downstairs the entire time, so she couldn't have been checking in on them every 5 minutes, trying to get everything out of her head, telling herself that this is just all in her head and there's nothing happening, there's nothing going on. She's just freaked out about the movie or the VHS tape. So she decides to head back downstairs. So what does she do? She decides to put it back on. So in this third and final segment of this VHS, we follow a costume designer. And they don't say her name, at least not that I remember them saying her name. And I really don't care to look up her name or what her name was. But she is a costume designer. We know this because of the conversation her and the mechanic both had in one little bit. But this third segment starts off with her driving. She's realizing she's low on gas. There's a gas station 3 miles away, so she decides to stop there. There's nobody outside at first as she's rolling up to the gas station. So this costume designer gets off her car, as you do, right in the middle of the night. And as if you don't see anybody, the best thing to do is get out of your car and go look for somebody. So she doesn't see anybody, but then all of a sudden she hears this ruckus off to the side, and it's the mechanic kicking out none other than Art the Clown. And the reason he's kicking out Art, which is the only thing I do not like about Art, that he loves rubbing feces all over the fucking place. No matter where I guess in any bathroom, he rubs his shit everywhere and puts his name with the shit. It's very disgusting. I don't know, it's just poop. It's nasty. It's nasty. Throughout the entirety of this third segment of on the VHS tape, he has shit all over his hands. a disgusting thought. So he's having a little bit of a rough time trying to get Art to leave, but he eventually does, and Art gives him his whole little like creepy wave or whatever. So then he leaves, and then he finally gets around to pumping the gas for this costume designer. As he's finishing up pumping the gas, and after they had their conversation about, what she does and all this, what all that was about with Art, as they are in mid-conversation, they hear a noise coming from inside of the building. So of course, naturally, the mechanic goes to inspect what all the ruckus is about, leaving the costume designer by her car, and he hasn't come back in a while. So of course, the next natural thing for this woman to do is go and find him, right? Like, I haven't seen this guy in a minute or two. I wonder where he could be. I've seen enough horror movies in my life to know if, you're talking to somebody and they hear a noise and they go and check it out and they're not back within 5 minutes, I'm booking it. I'll be like, I ain't standing around and find out where or why this person has now vanished, but I'm getting the fuck out of here. I think that's a natural reaction with anybody. I mean, anybody would go and do that, right? But I get it. It's a horror movie and the plot needs to move forward. So here we are. So she eventually enters the building and she sees Art on the ground. He's in the middle of cutting off this guy's head as she's watching him, and they're kind of just staring at each other. I think he also sawed off the rest of his body parts as well. Oh, but I do want to mention that Art in this one does have the prosthetics all over his face, making the defining features. And this is still Mike Gianelli plain Art, but see, this Art actually looks a lot better, doesn't look like just a normal person, and it makes him look a little more, demonic, a little more creepier. And I guess this is where he is now spawning to be his own killer. He's no longer doing these things for anybody else, like in the first one where he was capturing people and tying them up for Satan. But anyway, yeah, so she finds him midway cutting off this mechanic's head, and she then decides to get in her car and drive away, which is, a natural response to seeing such a horrific scene. So she's frantically trying to call the cops, and she's telling the cops that there has been a murder at the gas station. And as she's driving, she sees Art the Clown off to the side of the road holding a sign that says circus. She's kind of just freaking out about that, and she just can't believe that this is actually going on. But as she sees the side of Art, she swerves off the road, almost colliding with an oncoming car. She ends up drifting off onto the side of the road, and she's there for a minute or two, and she's just like, again, crying and telling herself that this isn't real, this can't be happening, blah, 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 whatever. And then eventually, like I said, she's been there for a minute. So Art ends up catching up to her. So then she ends up driving away yet again, and she sees a car that's off to the side of the road with their hazards on, and she gets off to ask them for help, I guess, instead of just continuing to drive. So she gets off, she's trying to tap on the window at this woman who has her head on the steering wheel, and as she opens up the door to check on this woman, this lady's head flies back, and her face is just mutilated. Kind of looks like the woman from the very first Terrifier movie, which I assume this is where all this came from. Costume designer decides to get back in her car and continue driving. So then as she's driving away for the third and final time, she grabs her phone and she's yelling at her boyfriend, telling him to call the cops. All of a sudden, her phone just goes silent. So she throws her phone in, and all of a sudden, Art out of nowhere appears from the backseat, grabs a piece of plastic, puts it right over her face, and is trying to suffocate her. Then she slams on her brakes, forcing Art to fly forward and smack his head on the dashboard. To which, of course, that has zero effect on Art. So then she gets out of her car, she's running through the forest. She eventually finds this abandoned warehouse in the middle of nowhere. She ends up locking it, and then Art, of course, catches up to her. He's banging on the doors, pushing them, but to no avail, he can't open the doors. So then the ruckus just stops. Art eventually gives up, and then she goes and sits down quietly, and she's just there. I guess she fell asleep for a second or something like that, but then as she wakes back up, out of nowhere, you see Art coming out from the fucking ground. So you're telling me this supernatural demonic clown being can't get through these plywood doors, but could dig from the outside to the inside like nothing? I feel like that doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like he could have easily busted down those doors, and if that's the case, but it's art, so he probably knew he could, but decided to catch her in the most funniest way, I guess, which would be to sneak attack her from the ground. That's insane. So she tries to make her escape yet again, but of course these doors, she can't unlock them now. So she's now frantically freaking out and trying to escape. And then Art comes up from right behind her and starts whipping her with his cat o' nine tails, homemade cat o' nine tails, I should add. This thing has like knives, X-Acto knives attached to this thing. It looks insane. So anyway, he starts whipping this costume designer with it, and then eventually like he breaks it. So he's just kind of staring at it, kind of like, oh, what the fuck did I do? And as he's doing that, this lady sees an X-Acto knife on the floor, so then she picks that up and stabs him right in the eye. So now Art is just motionless in white and black on the floor, and then her final attempt at escaping, she gets up and runs away. And then she eventually finds the road, and then luckily for her, there is an oncoming car coming up, so she waves it down, gets in, and then you have this nerd-looking guy. He's asking her like all these questions, like, oh my god, what's happening? How hard are you? And she's like, just drive, hurry up and go. Pedal to the metal, my man. Let's get the hell out of these woods. Tired of the woods now. Let's go. So then she's telling him that there is a guy in a clown costume chasing after her, and he's like, okay, well, there's a police station not too far from here, so he's gonna go and drop her off there. But then all of a sudden, there's a car fastly approaching them, honking at them. She turns to look at them, and she's like, oh my god, that's him. But if you actually see it, you can't see anybody. The headlights are so bright that makes the windshield just pitch black. You can't see who's riding the car. So Art eventually catches up to them and now is driving right next to them, and then he's smiling at them, and then he points a gun right at them, and then instead of braking or doing anything else, this guy is just staring at Art, and then Art fires at him, shooting him in the head, causing them to crash. So then this is where she blacks out, and then the next scene, she wakes up and she's just kind of staring all over the room, and she sees a table that's full of knives and bloody weapons, and she looks over to her other side, and then she sees Art just laughing at her, and then she's kind of just like looking around, and I'm like, oh my god, looking down at her body as to like what's going on. It doesn't show anything at first, but you do get close-up shots of words that Art has now carved into her body, and I cannot show these words and I cannot show how this looks, but he essentially has now severed all her limbs and cut out her chest and carved these obscenities into her flesh, has now left her as a torso, which to this, I'm like, how could she have survived? All the blood, and I get it, he sewed her back up, but goddamn, she would have lost a lot of blood and she would have been dead. She wouldn't have even come back from her unconsciousness. But again, this is just a horror movie, and I'm putting too much thought, too much realism into it, and I know I should just enjoy it, but it's the little things like this that I'm kind of like, all right, my guy. This doesn't make any sense. But he could have injected her full of adrenaline or something. And also, I just think this looks funny because it's obviously that the torso that is now her body, it's a fake body, and her head is inside the table, and it's just her head that's the real thing, and then her body is kind of just like wiggling around a little bit. I just think that's funny. It's not the best looking, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. And this is kind of just giving us like a taste of what's to come when it comes to art and the Terrifier franchise. Like, this movie was just kind of like a sample of what's to come. You can tell how sadistic art is. You could see where the thought process was with Damien Leone when it came to making this movie, and obviously showing you again what art is capable of. So then we cut back to Sarah, the babysitter, and she is frantically just trying to shut the TV off, but nothing's working. The clicker isn't working, but all you see is static, and in the static slowly appears the image of Art. And it's the same scene that the costume designer came up on Art in the mechanic shop, where he's just sawing off the dude's head and he's staring directly into the camera, and Sarah is now seeing all this but through a static, so she's kind of just freaking out about that. She eventually gets the TV to shut off, and as she does that, the phone starts to ring. So then she picks it up because she's kind of just like weirded out that the phone is ringing right after she was just watching all this horrific shit. So she picks it up, and the woman on the other line is our costume designer from the very last segment of the VHS tape. But I think what's funny, and I don't know how he meant this scene to play out, but everything that she is saying over the phone is just the same lines that we've already heard her say. So I really don't know what the thought process was to that. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know, and I'm not going to put any more thought into that because it's kind of giving me a headache, if I'm being completely honest. I didn't understand understand just this little part with the phone call. I don't understand it. I don't. But she hangs up, and then out of nowhere, the TV comes back on, but it's just static. So then Sarah goes up to the TV, trying to figure out what the hell. Why is the TV turning back on all of a sudden by itself? As she's looking at it, the static eventually clears, and we get a shot of what looks like a basement. Out of nowhere, Art is coming out from like behind the littlest pole, which I actually find this scene really fucking cool. It shows that Art is an entity of sorts, that he could be in one place, vanish, and then be in another place seconds later. And I think this shows that right here in this little moment. He comes out kind of like Pennywise of sorts. So then he slowly is creeping out. He's getting closer to the camera. He ends up right on screen, and he's kind of like doing this whole thing where he's feeling around the edges of the screen, and he eventually like looks up at Sarah. So then he starts banging on the screen trying to get out. It suddenly switches to a shot of Sarah standing in her living room. So now she is watching herself, and she's kind of just like freaking out about that. So she looks back, and she's like kind of freaking out. So then she looks back at the TV, and then all of a sudden Art is now sitting there on the couch, and she looks back at the couch, and there's nobody there. So then she's trying to turn off the TV, and as she's trying to turn it off, Art gets up from the couch, and as he's getting up and getting closer behind Sarah, she is trying to eject this tape, and it's taking her a minute, and Art's slowly but surely creeping up on her, and then she eventually gets the tape out, throws it on the floor, shattering it into a million pieces. After that, there is just complete silence, but then the silence is immediately broken by Tina, who is screaming from upstairs. So Sarah goes up there to go check on her, but then she is suddenly stopped in her tracks by Art. He's standing at the top of the stairway, and he's covered in blood, so Art is now pointing at her and laughing at her, pointing at the room and laughing. Sarah then covers her face like she just can't believe it, and then she looks back up, and then Art is just nowhere to be found. So then she goes into the kids' room. Before she even opens up the door, you can see a little bit of blood off to the side, and forewarning for anybody who doesn't want to hear about this part, I would highly suggest turning away. It's been long enough of a video, and I appreciate you for staying this long, but if you're not into kids dying in movies, I would turn away now. She goes into the kids' room, and there is blood everywhere. All there is left of these kids is their severed fucking heads in bed. They're laying next to each other as if they were laying down, sleeping next to each other. And I don't know, it may be because I have kids of my own, but this this scene really fucked me up, and I've never gotten like that with any movie, but just the thought of seeing that. Art is one sadistic bastard, dude. Like, holy I thought there was boundaries when it came to this shit, but kids in Damien Leone's universe are not off limits. So we have a shot of two severed kids' heads in bed, covered in blood. So that's the end of that. And then the movie just cuts to black after that, and then I guess for people watching this, where it was that same basement scene where Art came out from behind that little tiny pole, and he is now creeping up to the audience as to tell us that he is real and he's coming after you specifically. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is All Hallows Eve, written and directed by Damien Leone. And, you know, I gotta hand it to you, man. This was a pretty fucked up movie for the time, because I don't think at the time anybody was really doing anything this crazy. It obviously had to find the right people for it to gain such an audience that it has. And for me, it was The Terrifier, the very first film that got me into this movie, because I looked into the backstory of Art the Clown, because I was really curious as to where this guy came from and how he came to be. But I think we're gonna kind of get that in Terrifier 3, which I'm very excited for. But I give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. Just because it was Damien Leone's first major debut as a filmmaker, but also, again, it was just something nobody was really doing at the time, I don't think. With Art being a very unique character and all, and a very gory one at that. If you've seen any of the other Terrifier movies, if you've seen Terrifier 1 or if you've seen Terrifier 2, Art is just a very brutal person. He's a very brutal character, and he's a very good villain. More of one that is kind of likable. There's something to him that, I don't know, I don't know the words to put in. You see Art, you see Terrifier, you see Terrifier 2. I think that's where it all came to be, where people are just like, I like this guy, he's funny, he's fucked up, but he's funny. And, you know, I like that. So, but again, I highly encourage you to tread lightly when it comes to Terrifier and Terrifier 2, because like I said, this All Hallows Eve was just a taste of what's to come, and we are going to be getting into all of the gory good shit when it comes to Terrifier in my Terrifier review, which I think I'm going to release closer to Halloween. I don't don't really want to blow my load when it comes to all of this all right away. So I kind of want to savor it, and I want to make it just a better review and make it like the best review I can make it of Terrifier, because again, this is one of my all-time favorite horror gore movies, and I just love it so much that I want to do it justice. But I really wanted to talk about it because, like I said in the beginning of this video, we now know that Terrifier 3 has finished up wrapping. We're getting it 2 weeks earlier, and I'm just so fucking excited about that, and I can't wait to see Terrifier 3. So let me know your thoughts on Terrifier and just as a whole. And when Terrifier 3 comes out, I kind of want to go with like a group of friends, or maybe just be me and my wife, because like I said, we bonded over this movie, as fucked up as that sounds. We didn't bond over the movie, but it was the very first movie, like I said, that we both watched together on our first unofficial date. And it's just kind of like it's one of those movies that, you know, has a soft spot in my heart because of that. And yeah, no, I'm just excited. So outro time, woo! But anyways, guys, that's going to be my review on All Hallows Eve. Have you seen the movie? Have you seen any of the Terrifier films? If you have, what do you think about them? Because I'm really curious to know everybody else's thoughts on this franchise and Art the Clown as a whole. So comment those thoughts down below and let's have a conversation. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you really like this video, consider subscribing and hit that notification bell. That way you get notified every time I post a video. But before I go, I just want to say that my wife, I just want to say that my wife and I have resurrected our podcast. The Unholy Ghost icon is going to be right up there, so go ahead and click on it. Consider subscribing as well, because we are getting back into the flow of things. We make videos from haunted train tracks to all the brutality of Hollywood, and, you know, the dark secrets to the Devil's Bridge and things of that nature, things based in reality. So if you're into all of that, consider subscribing, and we will see you over there. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you. I will see you in the next video. Later. Oh, god damn, that's hot. Burn my lips off. You know, I don't know why I am the way I am sometimes, but it makes me happy. You know, I don't know. My lips! My lips! Sorry, I've had like way too much coffee. I should probably stop excessively drinking coffee when I start these films. When I start shooting these videos, I should probably stop drinking so much fucking coffee. I feel like there's a big empty space right here. Like, I feel like something needs to go there. There we go. Oh. Speaking of Terrifier, we have what size are you? 1.6 scale, which translates to about 12 inches. Look at this fucking guy, dude. He's missing some hand accessories only because I have them here on my shelf and I was just too lazy to put them. No, that fucking sucks. I didn't like that. Give me a sec. There we are. Much better. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about anymore. But anyway, enough messing around. Let's get back into the video.